The tools keep on evolving, the workflows might change, but the one thing that is constant, it needs to be better stories. It needs to bring the human element. So GRAiL is a next-gen entertainment studio and management company powered by AI. So regardless of how you stack the tool, what is the story and how you choose to deliver it and how do you choose to execute it? That's what makes you you.
Who are the artists? How are they protected? How are their ideas protected? And how does that move forward? None of which, by the way, we truly have answers.
When people go, how did they do that? You're in the realm of magic, and that's kind of like what we want to operate.
We are Topaz Labs, and this is Spotlight. AI is disrupting how video is created and experienced, and we want to tell that story as it unfolds. The real heroes of that story are the creatives and studios shaping the future of filmmaking and storytelling with AI. So we're putting them in the spotlight. Make sure to subscribe to see future episodes. If you have questions for our next guests, drop them in the comments. Enjoy the conversation. Okay, so I think it will be very interesting if we just understand the origin story. How did this group come together?
So Davide and I met through mutual friends who felt that he and I had similar sensibilities about what we liked, the fact that we were very much involved with inventive and darker science fiction and how we like creating that kind of world. And then that expanded our conversation into, what is it that we could do together? And I think at the time when we were talking, I was fascinated by what he was able to do with where AI was and kind of its state of technology. And as we moved forward on different things, we kind of experimented with different things, both physical items and how we could manipulate those with AI, and then some of the projects that he was working on. And I would say it was shortly before you directed the Coke spot that we were talking about what the philosophy was on a business. And that was still kind of in the air. And then what really, I think, cemented the partnership was we had seen some other studios that were coming into the marketplace. And when I saw some of the deals they were offering creators that seemed very ominous, very all-encompassing, especially when it came to their rights, having come from film and television and having worked extensively in the publishing business, it felt like 20 years ago in the comic book business where, hey, any idea you have, we're going to own the copyright to that. We're not going to pay you for it. And, we're promising we might do good things. And I'm just like, I'm not watching this happen twice. Not in an emerging business, not when the opportunity for great storytellers, because as we've discussed, a lot of bad habits were formed with the technology that was born in the 20th century. And that was, in many cases, around copyrights. Like, there are a very limited number of things that can be copywritten. Screenplays are one of them, because the 9 studio heads at that time decided, hey, we were going to lobby Congress and make sure that this is something that can protect our business. And when you start looking at what's copyrightable within AI creation, it starts to get into a really interesting conversation as far as who are the artists, how are they protected, how are their ideas protected, and how does that move forward? None of which, by the way, we truly have answers. And I said, well, I think this is a really interesting time as a filmmaker yourself and as someone who comes from the business side for us to explore this.
And granted, I've been, my background is pretty hybrid. I've always been kind of too much of an artist to go to art school or film school. And I fell in love with the idea that the computer was going to be the tool that would allow me to tell stories in a different way. So in the past 20 or so years, I basically covered every role within the production pipeline that you can think of, from screenwriting to character design, lip development, vehicle design, how you package and sell a show, how you do a San Diego Comic-Con stunt, how you do a marketing launch for an IP, whether it's gaming, TV, products, etc. And the throughput line that I've seen consistently was how many good ideas die a miserable death on the floor of an executive board meeting because the person that sits across the table from you is incapable of visualizing what you're trying to tell them. And so when we saw, the aha moment, which is what I referred to, which is about July 2022, was the first open beta of Midjourney. I connected the dots, and that was like, this is going to be transformative because it allows us to go from wouldn't it be cool to take a look at this. And now fast forward, and we're seeing, the producer approach coming out, the tech company approach coming out and exploiting what we believe is going to be the next generation of visionary filmmakers, just like the film school generation in the mid-70s gave you Spielberg, Lucas, De Palma, Coppola, and the mid-90s gave us the propaganda generation with Chris Cunningham, Spike Jonze, Fincher, Michael Beck. The new generation is going to rise out of AI. We agreed that we did not want to see this getting cannibalized already and basically degraded to low-pay VFX artists. Because with the right tool and with the right support system and the right infrastructure, these people who are, by the way, already filmmakers, they're not just people that overnight learn how to do it, how to edit, come up with a concept, put story, like that's years and years of experience. So seeing this happen again, just like it happened with the VR wars, just like it happened with other transformative mediums that have been exploited, was really kind of like a calling card for us. And yeah, that's why we really try to harp on the representation side of the business too, because we're literally trying to build a home for the future generation of filmmakers.
I really like how you come at it from both the representation angle and the tech angle, because a lot of people that we talk to, the tech side is pretty out there. AI is changing things. Content creation is evolving. But can you talk a little bit more about how you see the representation angle to be changing in this age of AI?
What they know.
Representation, I don't think, is going to be changing as much in the way that you guide talent. I think it's in the way that talent is creating, and it's almost right now having to defend their position because everyone, I would say, is a little afraid for what the future holds. And I think that that's not the correct approach. It's a collaborative approach as to how do we develop more of a hybrid workflow. And almost all of our talent has some kind of filmmaking experience, whether they've been in advertising, whether they've been in music videos, whether they directed films. They're now applying a new set of tools to essentially upscale their vision. Now, if I'm 17 and I'm at home and for the first time I'm learning how to tell a story using these tools, 5 years from now, we're going to have this amazing crop of filmmakers and storytellers that otherwise would have had, an almost gauntlet-like field of barriers in their way to getting their vision out there. And I think that the influencer generation really showed how easy it is to engage with the audience. And I think that this is going to have a similar effect with motion pictures and television.
I want to ask Kim's journey. How did you get to where you are today, and how did you get to work together with GRAiL?
So basically about a year ago, so Davide and I don't know, you guys know, but we're married. So he got me into AI. I originally was doing UX design. I'm also an actor. So I started out, it was actually really hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this. But then I just kept practicing. And I have so many stories I want to tell. I have so many ideas. And, I think this is also going to bring new faces and new directors because, some people can't verbalize and some people just have such an imagination that now you can do your work and bring it to life. So that's kind of how I started.
What's very unique about her approach too is that being a traditional actor, she has on set experience, but also she's very technical. So before actually getting into generative AI, she was a UX UI designer, so she already has a designer approach, and she has an engineering approach because she was studying how do you do deep prompting in Bard, or she had a Google certification. She did stuff with IBM Watson. She actually went into the AI core type of stuff, and then retrofit that type of approach to prompting in generative AI tools. So it's an interesting layer there that is very unique, and I feel like that's probably why she developed her own visual aesthetic in a way.
But also as an actress and being able to interpret the human condition into your engineering mindset, the fact that your right and left brains really met, that makes your work, in my opinion, more unique than a lot of the things that we see out there. Certainly more fluid, more rich, and definitely more organic.
And it's a true testament to, it's really about who's at the helm of the tools and not the tools, because we use a lot of the same tools, but she has her own approach and style, and you can kind of tell when something is done.
We're not. Yeah, we're not the same.
Love it. I think the story about when you see something like a major challenge or problem with way things are, and you saw something in, a new model. So that story is very interesting. The next question, getting into the GRAiL Studios, I think we just want to learn, first of all, what is it?
So GRAiL is a next-gen entertainment studio and management company powered by AI. The studio has 4 core functions, one being services, so pre-production, production, and post-production for TV networks, streaming platforms, brands, gaming companies, and all that. Second pillar is original and licensed IP. So we have a full slate of original projects that we're currently producing and working on, as well as a pre-existing IP that we're licensing, but we're collaborating with other creators on. The third pillar is tech IP. So we developing custom workflows, and the array being one of the things that you might heard about. And then the representation model is the fourth. And again, so we represent 14 of the top 20 AI filmmakers globally, and we're essentially trying to create that infrastructure and that home for the artists to live in.
Got it. So 14 of the top 20. Got it. Wow.
And what is it that you feel like the GRAiL does differently or believes differently that resonates with them the most? And I guess that sets you apart from other studios.
I think Jeff will agree with me on this. I think every person on our roster was kind of cherry-picked based on their abilities to tell stories. Like, we're really focused on storytelling first. We don't want to just flex tech, specific technologies or how you use, because I'm always been a firm believer of the idea that technology should be in service of story and not the other way around. Because if you do tech for tech's sake, it comes across shallow, gimmicky, cold. It's just a tech demo. When it's in service of story, it becomes that invisible hand that lets you go like, what the hell? How did they do that? And like when people go, how did they do that? You're in the realm of magic, and that's kind of like where we want to operate. So every person on our roster has a very unique way to tell stories, very unique aesthetics. They're all different from one another. There's no two filmmakers that are the same. And that's really what we wanted. Like, again, we want to create the support layer for the filmmakers of tomorrow. And whether it's, hyper stylized, whether it is a romance comedy, whether it is animation, like, these are all guys and girls, and I mean they're all artists that come from a background. Like, I've been doing like my passion with AI goes back 25 years. I started in computer science, but then I did advertising. I'm an Emmy award-winning director. I'm a creative technologist. I work with brands in every shape and form. So it is not an overnight type of thing. And all of the guys on our roster are a similar story. So who's a Emmy award-winning editor, somebody that has done, TV commercials for 15 plus years. It's like now embracing the tools of tomorrow to really turbocharge your creativity, not replace it.
In the other studios that we've seen emerge, I think it's been really tech heavy. From a content standpoint, I haven't been overwhelmed by what I've seen. I think that we're about not only working with the filmmakers that we have now, but helping to guide them through the current Hollywood system and redefine how things are going to move, as probably in the next year to 2 years, things are going to radically change in the way that a global filmmaker is born. And I think that from the way that we're looking at things, even from a production standpoint, in how we're approaching the production model moving forward, is radically different than what we're seeing out there.
It's one of my core beliefs that I think the future of creativity and storytelling is going to be built by technology paired with people with deep industry experience. So deep filmmaking knowledge or deep experience as an actor or actress. But obviously, we see a lot of people out there right now who are starting with these tools, maybe don't have that depth of experience. We'll see how things turn out in the next 3 to 5 years, but what is your perspective on where the industry is going to go and how much advantage or difference in perspective that somebody with deep industry experience can have over somebody just starting out with the tools.
Which industry are we talking about?
Either filmmaking or creativity, storytelling in general.
Got it. Okay. Sure. I think that you will always have an advantage coming from a creative background. If you have experience in it, if you've made movies before, if you've made television shows before, you're always going to have a better. However, as what happened in the early 90s when CGI came in, it started, if you go all the way back, we're talking about Tron, we're talking about The Last Starfighter, talking about Lawnmower Man, and then comes Jurassic Park. At that moment and the success of something like that, the industry turned on its head. Overnight, you saw companies closing. Smart ones that had been doing this for years just reapplied their skills to the new tool set. A lot of people right now are looking at this and they're concerned, especially filmmakers, that some of the styles, some of the shots that they may have pioneered that were really challenging to do can now be done in seconds or minutes. And what we have to remember is that we ingest all forms of content. Now, this new generation that we're discussing, they've gotten it all. They've seen it all. And now they have the opportunity to use tools that help them to amplify, but not only use what others have created, to come up with their own style, their own texture of storytelling. That, I think, is the most important thing, is that we're going to see something totally new, totally visceral, and totally emotionally arresting in a way that we're ingesting stories.
And I think, I don't want to be overly hyperbolic or, but I think we're right in the middle of a complete paradigm shift like no other. This one is going to disrupt the trillion-dollar industry, which is the entertainment industry, and it's not slowing down. It's only picking up speed. For making fun of the fact that basically the past 2 weeks leading up to today, to this conference, there's been more drops than the past 2 years combined. And it's really about identifying the studio model of the future, because the traditional Hollywood model is broken. There's fewer and fewer movies that are being done, even fewer that are actually making the right box office numbers to justify, $250 million investment. Fewer and fewer TV shows are being renewed. So we need an agile and efficient model that allows us to go from ideation and conception to green lighting to production. And this is where AI comes into place to kind of augment this transition and give us the ability to iterate faster, to be more efficient, and really go back to the indie filmmaking ethos, where you can have a scaled down production of 15 to 20 hyper specialized creative technologists that know how to tell stories, but also know how to execute the vision and how to implement it. And all of a sudden, you're going back to Fellini's and Kubrick and the ways that was some of the best movies and best cinematic experiences were ever done, as opposed to one that was built on the idea of a studio system that needs to feed 2,000 people. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see a transition to this new model. And again, new voices are going to rise out of this, and new stories are going to be heard and be seen, as opposed to remakes of remakes of remakes. And that's what we're excited about. But also what we're excited is about how to create this model. Now, how do we work with actors and actresses? How do we work with screenwriters? How do you stack AI on top of VFX? How do you stack VFX on top of AI? How does this become the new fluid model where everything is iterative, non-linear? Because as we say, pre-production is post, post is pre. So we can quickly get something that in front of an audience or in front of decision makers, or iterate or pivot based on what serves best the story, because we have something that we can emotional respond to, as opposed to here's a sketch, we got to go and film it, we got to go and do post, we got to do in comp. Oh, it doesn't work. Let's go back out, do reshoots. Now we can move at a speed that is unprecedented, which affects how much cost can come down, how many days on set are actually needed, because now you don't really need reshoots if you have visual plates and assets that you can actually train models on. It really becomes a new way to approach it. And I think that's super interesting, and figuring it out is the most exciting part of it.
Yeah, it's not like the technology, it's the problem that it solves. And the new model. I'm curious about your clients. So 2 questions. First one is how fast are they adopting to this new model?
What do you mean clients with me, like brands and the
Yes, like the clients that you create branded content or like work for them, right? I'm curious, like how fast are they adopting? Are there any challenges? And the second is, I'm interested, like who are your clients? What type of work you're doing for your clients? The different type of projects.
Everyone's working at their own pace right now because everyone's trying to see internally what the effect for their brand is going to be. So there isn't an answerable question there because every company is different. Every agency is different. The clients that we've been working with are Fortune 500 companies. Obviously, can't talk about it until each project comes out. Each one of them has a different process, none similar to the other. And that's their own pace. We respect that. But as we've heard from the people inside, it went this way when everything went from filming everything to CGI.
Yeah.
Similar model. They've been through it before. The people that have been there the longest, they're the ones that are like, this is just our process. Just relax and go with the flow. And that's what we do. We're not pushing anyone too hard. We're not making anyone, face their fears as far as what might or what. If they're comfortable doing something, we're comfortable working with them to do it.
And I think also it is hyper specific per industry and per vertical. The way that you would work with, say, TV network is completely different than from a consumer product good or a luxury fashion brand, because a lot of that is kind of recreating the infrastructure of what used to be all photo shoot based to adapt to being able to produce assets for global launch campaigns in a day and age where you need to move at the speed of culture. You need to move at the speed of the internet. So this provides an infrastructure to be able to deliver on that promise. But then again, there's the stigma and the original sin that comes from how the data was trained on, et cetera, that needs to be one in where the other be undone. But, that is a longer process. But as, the perfect example is like the results of the Coca-Cola holidays are coming, focus test groups. The general consumer does not really care whether it's done in AI or not. 98% consumer adoption rate. 5.9 out of 6.
So they can tell the difference.
Yeah. So it's really at the end of the day, if you keep in mind what the consumer wants and what the audience wants to see and hear, that's what the goal should be.
Yeah.
Not how you cook the sauce.
Yeah.
Necessarily. I mean, it needs to be done in an ethical way. But at the end of the day, like the direction we need to move into is quality storytelling, and how can we make this sustainable?
Yeah. So the context of that was like, if I was curious if there are companies, brands, or like specifically for branded content, right? When I talk to other creators, that they're like, okay, now there's a volume increase. Like they want to try this, that, because it wasn't possible before. Now they have the tool. Like just the amount of ads they want to run on social, or if they feature internal content for their board presentation, all of that things, they've seen what's possible. And this is like, I want this. And you guys work on this. So like, I was curious to see if there are huge pull from brands or film, like whoever, right, are coming to you and it's like, you need to move fast. Or is it like, we're not sure about this. So like you guys are closest to it.
Your answer is both.
Yeah.
We need to move fast, even though we're not sure on it. And that's okay. We're fine because we're happy to hold someone's hand going through these kind of uncertain times. That's why we're fortunate in that we do come from traditional backgrounds in advertising and film.
Yep.
When it comes to someone having ethical questions about, what everything was trained on, these are all still questions that are being answered far beyond us into Washington. From personal standpoint, I know that we both discussed this. We'd love to be a part of figuring out the best way to see the original copyright holders, much like I mean, we start to get into the Napster conversation. Yeah. Sampling was an incredibly polarizing issue when it first arrived it went back before the early 90s, but it really came back in the early 90s as an issue that needed to be dealt with. And when it was, it's been very profitable for everyone that's participated in it. Now, then it comes down to, did the artist want it or did the artist not want it? If the artist sold their rights, they kind of sold their control to it, yet, they also profit significantly from it. I think here we'd like to see some kind of opt-in program, if it's possible. If Washington says it's not, we're all kind of at the mercy of what the laws of the land are, much like the copyright laws, which started in 1790.
Yeah.
We've talked about everything is changing so fast. And I agree, the last 2 weeks even have just been insane with the number of model drops that there have been. And I think things are going to accelerate in the future as well. The new models and new base models are becoming better and better. And I think we're going to have a future where essentially creativity and storytelling, at least the technical aspects of it, is going to be democratized much more than it is now. But in light of all this change, what do you see in the next 3 to 5 years that is not going to change? There's all this change, but some things are going to stay constant. Based on your experience in the industry, is there anything that you feel like is just going to stay the same?
Human storytelling. We can't
Stress that
enough. The tools keep on evolving. The workflows might change, but the one thing that is constant needs to be the storytelling aspect. It needs to be better stories. It needs to bring the human element. It's just, if this quote unquote script is not worthy of being, read, or that story not worthy of being told, then all you have is some pretty pictures. So again, at the end of the day, it really goes back to story and how you serve the story. We've seen, a spike in productivity tools in the VFX and CG era too, like between 2012 and 2016. There was new models and new open source software that came out, from Blender to how you do, Houdini, and it's the same thing. It's like, but what services the story? I think also, aside from the foundational models that are getting better and better, there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out of the open source community. Comfy UI is a nuclear weapon in the hand of the right people. And again, how you stack that on top of traditional VFX and use AI-powered features to have more camera control. I think that is all great, but at the end of the day, the one thing that needs to be solid is the story good? Have we developed the right script? Are we working with the right talent? If we're working with actors and actresses, that needs to be the foundational building blocks, or because at the end of the day, it is storytelling. And if it doesn't capture you, if it doesn't make you feel a specific way, then it's kind of pointless.
And to support what Davide was saying about the human storytelling element, part of what we deal with on a daily basis is seeing things that, as you said, are pretty pictures. But when you're using, especially in Kim's case, she's made some amazing short films that you can tell not only in the way that her shots go, in the way that it flows, in the way that the narrative, that she's using visual storytelling, the pacing, the music, all of that is a mastercraft storyteller. And what I think the industry, or at least what we see in so many different conversations, is afraid of is, like Davide had said before, the Kubrick model of filmmaking where there's 20 people on set. It solves two problems: cost and efficiency. That makes it that easier to start seeing stories come out. However, volume isn't the problem. We may be drowning in stories in the next 2 years, but the reality is a great story is a great story, and people always will find and talk about a great story. It's not like it used to be where a great story was a giant movie. There were limited ways to receive marketing, and it was a cultural event that we all talked about. Now it's found in pockets, and it's very specific as to who likes what. But then every once in a while, there's one thing ever that unifies everyone. I think the biggest success recently, well, the two biggest have been Minecraft and Lilo and Stitch. One is a nostalgia play where it's a reboot of something that was animated. People grew up with it. The timing's right. Minecraft is just a cultural phenomenon that goes across multiple generations. But then they put a fun, I thought, really fun story to a movie that was worth seeing. And I saw that in a packed theater on the second weekend. That's great. And that validates good storytelling will always be there. So in the people that we work with, both as clients and on the studio and client side, we always stress the fact that sure, you can go to Chat GPT and do it. I still haven't, and most of the people I work with and around and have for years have not ever said, wow, that Chat GPT script really blew me away. It usually is when it fumbles and the comedy is just great.
Have you guys seen that prompt theory video?
Yes, love it. Love it. But that's a great use of this technology going meta on itself. But again, that wasn't AI that created that. That was a human. How do you guess it?
All right, but I think one thing to kind of further add on that, I think the one thing that will be constantly important is also style and tone of voice.
Yeah.
Because
Very much.
Because just like, who is at the helm of the tools is how you use them. Because, you can always tell a Fincher movie from a Spike Jonze movie.
Yeah.
So regardless of how you stack the tool, Kim and I can use the same ones. Completely different aesthetic, completely different tone and voice. So it's really, again, what is the story and how you choose to deliver it and how do you choose to execute it. That's what makes you you. And, whether you use AI, whether you use CG, whether you use pencil and, sketch on paper, it's always going to be you that you want to kind of let speak through the imagery here. So I'm really big on the idea of finding your voice and finding your signature delivery and let it shine. And you can kind of see, like even with my stuff, I try to be as diverse in terms of like aesthetics. Like one thing is hyper stylized, one is animation, one is like a horror one. But like you can kind of get a sense of like my style of edit and my style of storytelling. And that's what I'm kind of referring to. Like, you can always tell a Tarantino movie, whether it's a period piece or whether it's Pulp Fiction. So like, what is the equivalent of that with using these tools? Because again, they're not just tools because they can also be collaborators. But at the end of the day, it's your voice that needs to converge.
Yeah. So do you want to, let's actually pop the top off that conversation, because when Tarantino, I started in Hollywood in college right after Pulp Fiction came out. And my brain, unfortunately, there are memories I wish I still had that unfortunately are occupied by all of the knockoff Tarantino scripts I had to read, because everyone that could write a script was trying to emulate that voice. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Yeah. Some got made, most didn't. But if you're talking about, and the concern of an industry where it's, oh my God, now everything's going to look the same, or now it's going to feel like this. It's like, for years, the industry was, we got a hit over here, give me 20 more just like it.
Yeah.
Now it's, wow, that thing just is working. We got to stop it quick.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite make sense. But at the same time, you had millions of people go out, see the same thing and say, I'm going to copy that. Now you get into the AI question.
Yeah.
That's where Napster and Quentin Tarantino kind of beat, because it truly was a unique voice for cinema. Yeah. So unique, everyone wanted to steal it. Yeah. Everyone. It was horrible. I mean, I'm not talking about just novice wannabe filmmakers. I'm talking about legitimate established filmmakers. If they didn't know how to do it, give me 5 writers. We're going to write the same script. I actually saw this. We're going to have them write the same script, and then we'll take bits from each of it so that we can hopefully Frankenstein what a Tarantino movie would be like.
Yeah.
And it never worked. Never. Because you can't beat something authentic.
Okay, I wanted to ask this question, and I'm going to ask it to all the studios. Whenever I come across this question, it's always someone asking the toolmaker or like the tech engineering, personas, right? How long or how far are we from us creating like, a blockbuster quality movie? And it's like mostly looking at it from a model angle, right? Like the technology angle. But what you were saying is like, hey, it's the story. Like when we say Game of Thrones, like that is the story. So like I wanted to ask the same question from you guys. You looking at it,
The blockbuster, or
whichever. Some will argue we are already here.
if you're saying aesthetically blockbuster, I can give you a definitive answer. I think it's going to be within probably 6 weeks when you guys launch. Experts, after what I just saw, blew my mind away.
Or maybe, okay, give an example, a cultural moment, like people talk about The White Lotus, right? Like there are movies, TV series come out that you said earlier, people don't care how it's made, but it's an interesting story and it's like finished product, right?
I think comedy and drama are going to be not completely untouched, but relatively untouched as far as performers and writing, because that's really what you're talking about is how those are truly executed, right? When we're talking about coming up with something that is more action, thriller, science fiction, and especially horror, that's mood, that's tone, that's visual, that's audio. Right now, if you're asking when the next mega scale movie could be made, I'm being conservative. Yeah.
Again,
Okay.
Look, I didn't think coming in here today I was going to see the technology you showed us, and that probably accelerated what we believe would have been towards the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, we're just starting. It's gonna get
But this one's
really good.
it's fast. Compound effect is crazy. And it, like, there's, when I say that there's no frame of reference for this, it's like exact. Like we went from Pong to Call of Duty in 24 months. That took 50 years.
Yeah.
If you want to do the VFX comparison, Jurassic Park to Endgame, that was 30 years versus 24 months. And every 6 months we go 10x.
Yeah.
So,
Or more.
Well, I'm going to use this line today at one of the panel, right? So the Will Smith eating spaghetti video, like that is a really good reference point. That is like 3 years ago or so, 2 years ago. Like that wasn't even a first mile.
that was Gen 1.
Yeah. And now we're talking about final mile, last mile, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like in 2 years, all these things happen. It's like moving way faster than any of us expected, right?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that everyone brings up when they're talking about the concerns over AI usage, AI enhancement, what's it going to do to humanity? I don't remember in all the Terminator movies I saw, the Terminator ever stopping to paint something, play jazz. The Terminator's goal was efficiency and control and efficiency. So if we're worried that that's what it's going to do with it, it's not, because it's being trained on art.
I saw a meme that cracked me up, which is like, we thought when the robots came, it was like a Terminator, right? And then when they really came, it's like the Terminator sitting and painting.
And it really, like, can you imagine how pissed on everyone would be if there's a T-800 that's like, God, that Sistine Chapel was great.
Yeah.
But again, you're talking about craftsman element versus artisanal elements.
Yeah.
So everyone that we work with are artists that are using a set of tools to rapidly develop it. Whether it's your tool, which seems amazing from what we just saw, or 16 other tools that they're using it in concert with, which we believe is really the future, because how does an orchestra work? How does a band work?
Yeah.
It just makes a little more sense. And that's truly what makes it organic versus when people talk about their workflows, or like when we see one studio over another say, we've got the definitive model and we're the best at this, not knowing that we've seen 6 other companies that haven't deployed yet.
Yeah.
And they're asking our talent to work with them. Well, now we're actually getting very real time across the spectrum of artists as to what works and what doesn't. So every pitch we hear on the tech side, which everyone kept asking us, did we have proprietary technology? My answer to that was, why would we spend our time when there is such an influx of capital in such a small number of companies who are already hundreds of billions ahead, rather than try to figure out what works best for our artists and filmmakers in using those tools, cultivating those tools, and telling the best story with the tool.
On the topic of tech companies, what do you wish that the tool makers knew that you know, that you feel like would make the tools a lot better for creators?
The idea of starting creative fucking burnos, just like BS, I mean, right, is where we to start from. the idea of filmmakers working hand in hand with the toolmakers is what's going to advance this space in the right direction, as opposed to what we saw in the late 90s or early 2000s with the CG era, where like Autodesk or whoever was making tools. Every deployment was a year apart from one another, and they would listen to maybe some of the conversations in the channels or bulletin boards going, but it was really kind of hit and miss. Now I feel like the ethos and the approach that the creative partner programs with tools such as yourself, Kling, Runway is good. But I fear that in some cases is it being used as basic free marketing tools, in the sense of like, we'll give you access to this a week before. You can post about it and basically do the heavy lifting for us to create the hype, and then 1 week later we deploy for public access. What I really do think is needed is early access, 6 to 12 months ahead, and actually understand what are the key features that we are missing right now. What is going to help us get to a finished product that can be consumed by the general public and AI can be completely invisible. So it's really that level of partnership and that level of mutual understanding that is really needed to be able to push this further down or faster.
Where do you see GRAiL in the next 5 years, or any other thing you wanted to share with our audience?
I think 5 years is a really long time, unfortunately, in this particular market to look down the road. However, I think 5 years from now, we'll be working with whoever the best storytellers on the planet using tools like this are. Yep. Telling stories in some kind of new model we've all found ourselves in a way that everyone, fingers crossed, is a little more comfortable with. But at the end of the day, entertainment, movies, television, music, it's a consumer product. Mm-hmm. It is art that was designed as a consumer product. And whatever we create, we want the consumer to be happy with, because it's not just about telling your story. Mm-hmm. It's about having your story received by an audience that really was the audience you were trying to connect with.
Mm-hmm. I think that in the next 12 to 36 months, we're going to see the rise of new ways to finance, produce, and distribute content, and new voices will be rising, and whatever that new framework is going to be, we're probably going to be working in that. Again, story and storytellers, and it's going to keep on evolving. And I think that's, the figuring it out of it is what excites us the most. Like if it was that simple, it would have been already done, but like figuring out what the next steps and the one after and the one after that is really what keeps us excited and gets us out of bed every day.
Awesome.
I mean, I guess because we don't really know much of anything, I think this could really just, separate, we're using this stuff as tools right now, and we're putting it back into pipelines that are, what we currently use. So I feel that it's very unknown, and who knows who's going to develop new technology that could just drift us into a whole nother different direction.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this episode of Spotlight. We got more creators, more stories, and more episodes coming, so make sure to subscribe. If you have questions for our next guests, drop them in the comments. We would love to include you in our future conversations. See you in our next episode.